Tennessee wouldn't go after Sawyer Robertson to fill their new quarterback hole, would they?
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Monarch Money. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of ESPN Central Texas, in the Cam Show on YouTube. Appreciate you guys making it your first listen today and every day. We come to you from a hotel in lovely Charleston, South Carolina. That's why the background is so beige if you're watching on YouTube. That's why it's such a weird angle and probably not the most flattering of me. It's just for one night, folks. Hopefully nothing huge breaks, but we do have some snooze and topics to go over here. Obviously, the big story in college football, University of Tennessee now needs another starting quarterback. Could they look towards Baylor or some other guys in the Big 12? That has become a hot button issue. Plus, the Bears did pick up a name in the transfer portal. And I say a name because you probably haven't seen him play much. We'll tell you what they're getting. And a big weekend at the Dish for Wesley Jordan, a historic weekend at the Dish. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. You've seen it by now. The big story in college football at the end of the week and into the weekend, Nico Iamaleava. I think I got that. Iamaleava is obviously now the joke because he has been essentially kicked off the team. He didn't leave. Tennessee forced him out. Josh Heupel said hit the bricks because Dan Lanning of Oregon noted to Josh Heupel that, hey, Nico is looking around, seeing what better offers he can get. Somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 million, right? This was a big thing when he went to Tennessee, was that it was the highest bidder. And now he is going to be entering the portal again, looking for a new job. And of course, with a kid of Nico's talent, got Tennessee to the college football playoff, although you wouldn't know it because they basically just boycotted their own college football playoff game out there at the Horseshoe. He's going to have his fair share of offers. He will get what he is looking for in the transfer portal. But it becomes this kind of monumental day and move in college football that a coach is saying to his star quarterback, who they've already invested a ton of money in, for a starving, once historic college football program that is looking to get back in that national championship conversation. And the coach is telling him, we're good without you. If that's what you're going to do, if you don't want to be part of this, goodbye. And again, it brings up, more issues with the portal and with NIL in terms of how coaches are handling, how fans are handling it, and of course, how players are handling it too. So that's the story. And now Tennessee needs a quarterback. And there's been rumblings on social media, mostly from Tennessee fans, is where they are going to go. And of course, if you're looking for a quarterback in the portal, just like we talk about with Baylor basketball, if you're looking for a quarterback in the portal, you're looking for a guy who has proven it, because this is the SEC, right? Proven it and has time. Tennessee's probably not looking for a 1-year fix. Nico had 3 years of eligibility left. They weren't looking for that. So you want a young guy who has already proven he can play at this level. And 2 names continue to pop up from the Big 12. And those names are Sam Leavitt and Sawyer Robertson. Just enough for us to get a little sweaty over here. There's nothing that says Tennessee is going after Sawyer Robertson. There's nothing that says they've reached out to him. None of that. But if you're looking at how Tennessee is going to attack the transfer portal and see what they can get, as we've seen in football and recently with basketball, you can get in a kid's ear beforehand and say, hey, would this guy maybe take this? And would this guy maybe want to come play at the University of Tennessee? Huh? And then that guy could go in the portal. That's exactly what we saw with Rob Wright. Just is what it is. And you see a guy who has the best returning or best QBR of any returning quarterback in the country. He was absolutely snubbed for an all Big 12 team last year, completely turned his team around. He's got a cannon of an arm, can chuck it all over the farm, and he's potentially got 2 years of eligibility left. And he's played in the SEC, although very loosely. A couple of snaps in the SEC. So I know SEC fans will turn that down. Oh, scrubby little Baylor, right? But Sawyer Robertson is out there as one of the top 10 returning quarterbacks in the country this year. And guess what? If you're Tennessee, he's not playing at Alabama. He's not playing at Florida or Michigan or Ohio State or all these other big name schools that are already paying him in the millions of dollars. So there's nothing that says they have done that, but of course Tennessee will kick the tires on a guy like Sawyer Robertson. I think they'll do the same with Sam Leavitt out at Arizona State. Big 12 champion, went to the college football playoff last year, had himself a game against one of the best defenses in the country, the Texas Longhorns. They know that kid's capable. He's got a couple of years of eligibility left. He's also, Arizona State's obviously a bigger school than Baylor, much bigger. But again, we're not talking about an NIL collective powerhouse here. He's not getting paid $5-6 million a year, which is the going rate for the best quarterbacks on the market. So again, before anyone gets this twisted, I'm not spreading lies here. This is just what we've seen on social media, which you obviously have to take with a grain of salt. And thinking logically, thinking reasonably, those are guys that Tennessee is going to look at. That said, Sawyer Robertson's not leaving Baylor. He's just not doing it. And I know everyone wants to be able to say this about their quarterback, and everyone thinks this to some degree about their guys, but like Sawyer is a bit of a different cat here. Okay, like there is something deeper than the dollars and cents and the conference patch on the uniform for someone like Sawyer Robertson. And I think that's evident in the fact that he came to Baylor in the first place. We've talked about this for the last couple of years. There was nothing that screamed out like, yeah, Sawyer should be going to Baylor when Jeff Grimes was here. This was a guy who played in an air raid offense in high school, and he was playing for Mike Leach at Mississippi State. In fact, we had his high school coach on, Seth Parr, and he told us, he was like, I was surprised. I was surprised he went to Baylor. It was an offense that didn't fit him. Now it does. Now it is an offense that tailors to him. He is the leader on this team. He's finally kind of got some continuity as a starter. And the dude loves being here. Like, truly loves being here. And, he buys the Yeti coolers for all his teammates. Like, Nico wasn't doing that. Nico, we knew from the beginning as college football fans, he was going where the money was taking him. Dante Moore from UCLA to Oregon, same thing. Dylan Gabriel to some degree, but he was kind of pushed out the door at Oklahoma. Will Howard, good kid, had run his course at Kansas State and taken them where he could take them and got millions of dollars to go play at Ohio State. Sawyer Robertson is not that. So what I'm saying, and what all Baylor fans will tell you, is Josh Heupel, Tennessee Vols, do your worst. You've got a much better chance at Sam Leavitt than you've got at Sawyer Robertson. It's not happening. And there are plenty of guys that we can't say that about. Guys who play for Baylor, I think, that you couldn't just definitively say that about. But Sawyer Robertson's not one of them. Sawyer Robertson, without fail, is going to be the quarterback of the Baylor Bears. Next year, he is going to be under center game 1 against Auburn. He doesn't care about the competition in the quarterback room. He's going to be the starting quarterback. None of that interests him. None of that outside stuff. So I did find it interesting. Obviously, I've made it the first topic of the show because it is reasonable as a college football fan to think that is a place to look at, right? I'm talking from Tennessee's vantage point that Sawyer Robertson is a place to look. And it's reasonable to think that a guy who's playing quarterback at Baylor, again, for the average college football fan, it's reasonable to think that a guy that's playing football at Baylor would stand to have a bigger career at a place like the University of Tennessee. We'll make more money. We'll play in the SEC. We'll play, national TV every week and have a chance to go to the college football playoff. But what I'll tell you as a Baylor fan and someone who follows this team every day on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. But seriously, as someone who follows this team every day, Sawyer Robertson's not doing that. And if Tennessee doesn't get a guy like a caliber of Sam Leavitt, which is a high caliber quarterback, you could be talking about Baylor having a better chance to get in the college football playoff than the Vols. Just saying. So I think it's interesting enough that we talk about it, but I also think it's imperative to reassure you guys, Sawyer Robertson is not going anywhere. So Tennessee, try whatever you want. But Sawyer Robertson is going to be the starting quarterback for the Baylor Bears next year. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Here 5 days a week and sometimes on the weekends, talking nothing but the Baylor Bears. Of course, the number one source for Baylor sports news, not directly affiliated with the university. So real Baylor sports news. Anyway, coming up, we do have some news on the Baylor basketball front. A new name, because we're starting to fill out this roster a little bit. Who's the new guy and who could be next? That's coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, let me ask you a question, if I could. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Dining out, shopping, entertainment. It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It isn't just a budgeting app. It can be that too. But what it really is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. And managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts. You can set goals and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Baylor basketball needed to get to work in the transfer portal, and the work is starting to come through. They obviously had 3 big-time commitments before the Rob Wright transfer. They get their first real commitment since the Rob Wright transfer. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, it does feel like I'm in an asylum. Can I still say that? Is that still PC to say? It's just beige and I'm looking down. It's a weird setup. I promise it'll be gone tomorrow. But anyway, back to not burying the lead here. Jocelyn Bodo. Yes, that's the last name. Bodo. Coming from High Point University, is now a Baylor Bear. And let me tell you, this is at first I see that and I'm like, okay, whatever. A kid from High Point University. But then I had to step back because I said, Cam, you know what we've been talking about for weeks? I talked about it with Roy Ogletree of Channel 10 on a hit that he did. We talked about it with Jackson Posey last week. We talked about it with Sidney Wicker a couple of times during this process. It's not all going to be the Norchad O'Mears, the Jeremy Roaches, the James Akinjos, the Jalen Bridges. It's not all going to be that. Even the Ray J. Dennis's, right? I mean, Ray J comes from the MAC, but he was the MAC Player of the Year. And a bunch of you fans have talked about it too. Like, when are we going to find the next diamond in the rough? When's the next Adam Flagler? When's the next Maceo Teague? When's the next Torian Prince who was committed to LIU Brooklyn? Where are these guys who are going to schools that we don't know? They're playing at these mid-majors, and then they come to Baylor and they become all Big 12 players. I'm not saying that's what Jocelyn Bodo is, but that's what we've asked. A guy who has a couple years left, sophomore, check. A guy who is a big man, 7 feet tall, playing center, check. And one that you're probably going to be able to get a lot cheaper than Jeremy Roach and Norchad Omier, who can develop in your system, check. 3 checks there, plus the bonuses. Jocelyn Bodo is originally from Cameroon. I mean, you want to go down the list of Scott Drew's success stories with big men that are originally from overseas, usually from Africa? Because I only have 30 minutes in the show. I don't think we can go over all of that. There's too many to count. I mean, Joe Lawal-Achuel, Jonathan Chamwa-Chachua, Yves Misi to some extent. He didn't come over until his junior year of high school, I believe, to play high school basketball in the United States. You can just go up and down all day. Scott has this long track record of having dominant, and we haven't even gotten into the Epe Udo and those guys, of dominant big men that have come from overseas. But I'm just looking over at the last few years, and it's all there. And Jocelyn Bodo, what I love first and foremost is the fact that he's a sophomore. I'm sick of seeing seniors commit, guys with 1 year committing to the team. But he was also number 1 in the nation last year at offensive rebound percentage. And that stat and this guy's play style, I think, is going to tickle Baylor fans in the right place. Because what this guy brings to you with his skill set is a bit of a throwback. And by throwback, I mean like 3-4 years ago. Because Baylor, early in the season, was a pretty dominant offensive rebounding team. And certainly Norchad Omier was that for the whole season. But the numbers of their offensive rebounds and their field goals, coming off misses, it really dipped once you got into the conference schedule. That was something they were dominant at in the non-conference. You thought it was going to win them more games in the Big 12 than it did, and it fizzled out. You get the best offensive rebounder in the country by percentage. There you go. Bang. And what made Baylor so deadly with that over the last 5 years when they were a good offensive rebounding team? Kick out threes. You get guys in Obi Agbem and JJ White who can shoot the hell out of the three, 40% plus. And what Baylor really kind of revolutionized, kind of the Scott Drew, I guess maybe some Jerome Tang defense that we have not seen the last few years, is the no middle defense. And what was great about that was the kind of prototypical old school long center, which you don't see as much in college basketball anymore. And you certainly don't see it as much in the NBA anymore. But with a guy like Jocelyn Bodo, who averaged 5.5 points a game and 8.5 rebounds a game in 2 years at High Point, not exactly jumping off the page with the stats, but what he brings you is a throwback style, if you could call it that, from 3 years ago that was really, really successful for you. It brought you to a national championship. The no middle defense and the kick out three offensive rebound game got you a national championship in 2021. But it also elevated teams that weren't nearly as talented. Like that 21 team was awesome. Okay, they were incredible. But like 2019, when those two things went together, when you started with the Jacobs offense and you had that no middle defense, that team had no business being in the tournament that year. Remember that? Tristan Clark got hurt in the first conference game, and I had it down dead to rights. They were going to finish last in the Big 12. They didn't. They went to the NCAA tournament, won a game at the NCAA tournament. So this style also elevates lesser talent, and that's what Baylor's going to have this year. They're going to have less talent than they've had in years past. Certainly of any of the last 5 years. They're going to have less talent. It's probably the least talented team since the aforementioned 2019 team. But with bringing a guy like Jocelyn Bodo, after 2 years at High Point, is going to unlock some things. Obagbim and JJ White, same thing. Those guys come in with maybe not, this litany of honors like Jeremy Roach and Norchad Omier had, but they come with a style that is indicative of one that Baylor was very successful with. And so you got to give it to Scott Drew so far. I wish more of the guys had term left, but we wanted guys who could be diamonds in the rough that could get back to the style of basketball they were playing when they were turning things around or kind of taking things to the next level at the end of the 2010s and into the early 2020s. And that's what this does. That's what this transfer does. By the way, Dan Skillings Jr. of Cincinnati will be on campus this week. I'm interested to see what his role is at Baylor. Obviously, with the roster where it's at, you need bodies, and he's a guy who's played in the Big 12. He's had some ups and downs. Again, I've said it on this pod. I'm not a huge fan of where he's at right now, but beggars can't really be choosers. I think if he comes in, he's a bench player, which you need those guys too. But I'm just very intrigued. The other one I wanted to bring up is a guy who just went in the portal, and that's Darion Reed of Alabama. This guy was a huge prospect out of high school, 5-star, like one of a top, I want to say top 20 recruit in the nation. Not this past year, but the year before, class of 2020, class 2024. So this was his freshman season. Yeah. And he comes in as someone who didn't play a ton at Alabama this past year. Obviously, they had a great team with the Crimson Tide again under Nate Oates. Plays 6 points, scores 6 points a game, shoots 45%, 6'8", kind of a power forward with good rebounding ability plus rebounding ability. And he's a guy who, again, was a top prospect. So you want to talk about a guy with term. There it is right there, who Baylor did have their eye on, didn't have an offer because Alabama offered so early. But a guy who played at Prolific Prep in California, teammate of the great Yves Macy. So Baylor certainly saw him when they were out there. You guys remember that. They were out there a bunch in California trying to get Yves Macy because it looked like Yves might go to UT. And then Chris Beard did what Chris Beard did, and he ends up at Baylor. But they were back and forth to Prolific Prep in California quite a bit to see Yves Macy. So they've seen this kid a lot. It's just something to look out for. This one would cost you some money because he was such a big-time prospect out of high school. And it seems crazy for a guy who only started 3 games and played 14 minutes a game. But the upside is absolutely there with this kid. And he will have his choice of plenty of blue bloods. But maybe, just maybe, there are enough blue bloods out there, enough SEC schools out there that are like, you know what, we just haven't seen enough. We're not committing to this kind of money. And Baylor might be like, hey, we'll develop you. You see your boy Yves, like, still one of the front runners for Rookie of the Year. That was us. That was us that did that. So look out. Look out for Darion Reed. And if you're a Big 12 pitcher, look out for Wesley Jordan because he is coming for all your families. We'll tell you about it next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Yeah, it is Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. They get this easy-to-use website that is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, they got a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, so you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage now, and now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5, the number 5, for 5% off your order. That is at supplyhouse.com. Last thing, Baylor baseball. We knew it was a big series at Tech out in Lubbock for a spiraling Tech team. It did not go well on Friday night, but Saturday was a different story, a historic story written on Saturday. Wesley Jordan becomes just the 10th player in Baylor history to hit 3 home runs in a game. And even better, he had 3 home runs in the first 3 innings of the game at Rip Griffin Park, which we know with that wind in Lubbock, that ball can carry a bit, but he smoked all 3 of them. Like, these were no doubters, man. He's the first guy to do it in a Baylor uniform since Shea Langoliers on June 1st, 2019. You guys remember that one? It was against Nebraska Omaha. It was a record-setting day for Shea Langoliers. I think he had 11 RBI in that game, which tied the NCAA tournament record, which was then tied by kind of Baylor Bear Trey Richardson. He did it with TCU. But anyway, that was a game I was at as one of my last one, basically second to last one as a Baylor student. And so when you're talking about being in the company of Shea Langoliers, that's a pretty good place to be. And it was an unbelievable offensive output for the Bears. It was the first time in the Mitch Thompson era, the first time that all 9 hitters got at least a hit in a game. And that's what they need to be doing. They need to be tearing apart teams like Tech. Like, we're at this point where, Baylor's not the top team in the conference, but when a team is notably worse than you, which is weird to say about Tech, right? Because they have been unbelievable under Tim Tadlock. But when there's a team that's noticeably worse than you, you've got to take care of them, because I don't know that they're going to win those series against the top teams in the Big 12. But if you're going to get into the postseason, mainly the Big 12 postseason, you've got to get past these guys. You've got to. And you've got to have hitters like Wesley Jordan, man. I mean, talk about the accolades that kid's going to see at the end of the year. A power bat in the middle of that lineup. Plus, Jack Little got a homer on Saturday, kind of after a tough stretch. He got that thing going too. So it's just, I've told you enough times on this pod, but just keep an eye out for these Bears, man. Keep an eye out. Their pitching's been better outside of Friday night against Tech. Their starting pitching has been solid, and that was the biggest jump they needed to make from 24 to 25, and they are certainly on that path. And Mitch Thompson knows what the hell he's doing. And oh, by the way, next year, full scholarships. You got a coach that knows what the hell he's doing. He knows how to find the best high school talent in America. That's what he did at MCC for his whole time there, and he did it while he was an assistant and a head recruiter at Baylor as well, under Steve Smith. And you've now got those resources to keep up with some of the other schools in the Big 12 that allocate a ton into baseball. Just look out. And it starts with guys like Wesley Jordan having this historic day. I just wanted to highlight that. You guys know I'm a big baseball fan, so I wanted to highlight Wesley Jordan's historic day for the Bears. Let me know what you think about that team. Let me know what you think about the transfer portal haul so far. And let me know what you think about who Tennessee might go after. Will they make some calls on Sawyer Robertson? I'm going to tell you they will, but he ain't leaving. And if I'm wrong, let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave that notification bell ringing, because I was about to say like the video again. Leave a comment underneath. Tell me what your favorite coastal destination is, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you tomorrow on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.